The ink, well, it smells exactly like a fresh slaughterhouse. Down here in the cabinet war rooms, deep in the cold, damp belly of London, the air don't ever really move. It just sits, heavy, thick with the scent of wet concrete and far too many cigars that have gone out in the ashtray. Clack, clack, clack. That teletype machine, you know, it ain't just spitting out ink and ribbon, it's spitting out ghosts. I can see the old man, Churchill, standing over the metal tray. His shoulders are slumped, heavily, like he's feeling the weight of every Canadian boy on that beach pressing right down on his spine. Gray ash falls from his cigar. No, it's more like gray dust, right onto the map of France. Dieppe. A place that didn't mean a lick of anything to anybody yesterday, but now? Well, now it's an altar of blood. He's reading the tape as it curls onto the floor. Thousands of casualties, attack repulsed, total failure. And then he whispers it. A question that's going to haunt the history books long after the ink is dry. Is he mad? He's talking about the planners, the golden boys with the crisp uniforms and the clean blueprints. Is he mad? The question just hangs there in the stale, recycled air, cutting through the mechanical clatter like a jagged piece of rusty shrapnel. Funny how small things stick with you, like the smell of that teletype ink. It's sharp, acrid. Smells exactly like a butcher's shop at the end of a very long day, and the vibration, you can feel it in your teeth right down to the root. Every clack of that machine is a telegram to a mother in Ontario who's going to lose her whole world before the kettle even boils. We needed a second front. We needed to show Stalin we were in the fight. But this ain't fightin'. This is just a massacre. Churchill's looking at the report like he can see through the basement walls, looking right across the channel to where the surf is turning a muddy red. He's staring at a name on the operational plan, Mountbatten, the young, ambitious architect of this chaos, and you can see the rage, a sear rage flicker behind his eyes. Or maybe it's just bone-deep shame. It's hard to tell in the dim yellow light of these halls, the mundane horror of it all. It's just a machine and some paper. No screams, no gunfire, just a cold, rhythmic report of a world fallen apart in 6 hours. I remember the way my own kit always felt too heavy, the way the webbing itched when the sweat dried. But these boys, they never even had time for the sweat to dry. They just had time to bleed. Churchill's hand is trembling, just a little, as he reaches out to touch the paper. Who authorized this carnage? He asks. But the machine don't bother to answer. It just keeps clicking, rhythmic, uncaring. It's the sound of a sacrifice being tallied up in the dark. You can feel the vibration in the floorboards, a low mechanical hum that makes your stomach turn over. It's the sound of the machine eating men, and the silence that comes when the tape finally stops. Well, that's the part that really stays with you. It's the silence of a grave that ain't even been dug yet. He looks at the map. Dieppe, and you can see the look in his eyes. He's realized the spear we sent over there wasn't made of steel, made of glass, and it just shattered. The fog, it's thick enough to chew on, and cold. August shouldn't feel this damn damp. But out here in the channel, the air just clings to you like a wet wool blanket. We're bobbing in these little tin boxes, 400 arrows of glass aimed at a heart made of stone. And nobody's talking. Not really. You can hear the water slapping against the ramp, and the rhythmic, guttural chug-chug-chug of the LCA engines. It's a vibration that starts in the soles of your boots and works its way up to your skull, until your teeth feel loose in your gums. The smell? Well, it's a cocktail of raw diesel, salt spray, and the sour, sharp tang of a dozen men losing their breakfast into their helmets, saying a prayer won't stop the seasickness. Not when the waves are tossing you around like a toy in a bathtub. I remember a kid from Saskatchewan. No, it was Winnipeg, sitting across from me. His face was the color of a dead fish, green and gray. And he was clutching his Enfield so tight his knuckles were white as bone. He looked at me, and I saw it. That metallic taste of fear. It's like sucking on a copper penny while somebody's choking you. We were told this was a key attack, a masterpiece of a plan. Mountbatten's blueprint, crisp and clean on a mahogany table back in London. They called us the tip of the spear, but they didn't mention the spear was made of glass, and we were about to be shoved into a wall of fire. 7 minutes. 7 minutes before the world turns into a meat grinder. You can hear the first shells now. Distant, heavy crump sounds over the roar of the surf. The Germans, well, they ain't sleeping. They're waiting for us. They've been waiting since the first pebble moved. Then the ramp drops, and the blueprint, it just shatters. It wasn't a beach. It was a furnace, a wall of lead and tracers that looked like horizontal rain made of light. The first 80mm shell hit the boat. No, it was the one next to us. And the sound. Lord, it wasn't an explosion. It was a scream of rending steel. Hot iron finding cold water in human flesh. You're jumping into chest-deep water that's so cold, it stops your heart. And it tastes of salt and oil. You're stumbling over bodies before you even touch the shore. The machine, that German defense, it's working perfectly. It's a clockwork of MG-42s. Ripping through the air like a giant tearing a canvas sheet. Brr, up, brr, up. And every time it barks, another boy from the prairies disappears into the foam. The tanks, the big Churchill tanks, they're behind us. Gamroo, their engines are screaming as they try to find grip, but they're just targets. Big, loud, steel targets. You can smell the CAO. No. The rubber burning off the drive wheels as they spin. And the smoke is so thick you can't see the man 3 feet in front of you. You're just crawling, belly down in the wet, hoping the next shell don't have your name on it. The blueprint said there'd be cover. They said the Air Force would have cleared the way. But the air is just full of lead and the screams of men who've realized they're part of a lesson they didn't ask to learn. Funny how small things stick with you. Call him Mastin. Like the way the webbing of my kit felt like it was weighing 1,000 pounds once it got soaked, or the way the sand, no, the rocks, felt under my fingernails as I tried to dig a hole that wouldn't stay dug. It was a glass spear, and it just broke against the cliffs of Dieppe. We were supposed to be the heroes, but right now, well, we're just meat waiting for the grinder to stop turning. I saw a fella, couldn't have been more than 19, trying to push his guts back in with a pair of shaking hands. His eyes were wide, looking at the sky like he was wondering where the sun went. But there wasn't no sun, just the gray fog, the red tracers, and the smell of burning diesel fuel. The vibration of the 88s hitting the beach, it's a deep, thudding jar that you feel in your marrow. Every hit is a pulse. The heartbeat of a machine that don't know how to do anything but kill. We're pinned, and the tide is coming in, pushing us closer to the muzzles of the guns we were supposed to capture. It's a massacre on paper, and a nightmare in the flesh. And the old man in London, he's just starting to realize what he's done. He's starting to hear the clack of the teletype tallying up the cost of a masterpiece. But out here, on the shingle, the only tally is the number of empty helmets bobbing in the surf, and the sound of the ocean trying to wash away the smell of the slaughterhouse. We're the sacrifice. And the altar is made of French pebbles and Canadian bone. And the fire, it just keeps coming. The first thing you notice, well, it ain't the gunfire. It's the crunch. That terrible, grinding crunch under the ramps as they hit the shore. You expect sand? You want sand? Something soft to bury your face in when the lead starts flying? But Dieppe? No. Dieppe is made of teeth. Chert. That's what the planners called it. Hard, gray pebbles. Millions of them. Smooth as a baby's head and twice as cold. You hit the beach and your boots don't sink. They just slide. It's like trying to run on a floor covered in ball bearings while a man's trying to take your head off with a saw. And the tanks. Lord, the Churchill tanks. 30 tons of British steel. Millions of pounds of engineering. Supposed to be our salvation. Our moving walls. They roll off the ramps. Their engines, no. They were Bedford twin sixes, screaming and groaning as they hit that shingle. You see the tracks churning, throwing stones like buckshot. And then you hear it. That high-pitched metallic screech that sets your teeth on edge. A pebble, just a tiny, diamond-hard pebble, wedges itself right into the drive sprocket. The track snaps. No, it just jams solid. And the whole beast just stops. Stationary. $1 million coffin sitting in the surf. You can smell the rubber now. That thick, acrid stench of the fan belts and the drive tires burning away as the driver tries to force the machine against the earth. Smoke starts pouring out of the louvers, black and oily, mixing with the salt spray and the bitter taste of stale tea in your mouth. And the boys, we're huddled behind them, hoping for cover. But there ain't no cover when you're pinned against a wall of stone. You try to dig, you claw at the pebbles with your fingernails, trying to make a hole, a scrape, anything to get your belly an inch lower. But the ground don't move. It just rattles. Every time a shell hits near you, the stones turn into shrapnel. They don't just hit you, they pepper you. I remember seeing a fella, young kid maybe from Quebec, trying to use his shovel, but the shovel just bounced off the rocks like it was hitting a sidewalk. He looked at me, and I saw the look. That realization that the earth itself had turned against him. Funny how small things stick with you. I remember the sound of those pebbles hitting the bottom of a tin mess tin, like hail on a tin roof. But it was lead flying off the stones, above us. On the cliffs, the Germans have those MG-42s. You ever hear one? It don't sound like the Cold Rifle. It sounds like a giant ripping a canvas sail in half. A long, steady brrrr that never seems to end. The lead hits the shingle and the stones fly up in a gray cloud. And you're just laying there, looking at the man next to you. He's looking back, but he ain't seeing you. He's using his pack. No, he's using his dead mate as a sandbag because the stones are too hard to move. It's the mundane horror of it. The way the heat from the stalled tank starts to cook the air, making the diesel fumes so thick you can't breathe. And the water? The tide is coming in, cold and uncaring, pushing the wounded further up the beach into the line of fire. Your hands are bleeding from clawing at the chert. Your fingernails are gone. And all you can hear is that grinding, the sound of metal dying on stone, and the ripping of that canvas overhead. We were the machine. But the pebbles, well, the pebbles were the wrench in the gears. I remember a smell, a sweet, sickly smell of burnt coolant mixing with the sea salt. And the way the sun, well, it wasn't really a sun, just a pale gray disk behind the smoke, made everything look like an old photograph even while it was happening. You realize then, you realize that the maps back in London, those clean white blueprints, they didn't know about the pebbles. They didn't know that the geography of France was designed to eat our tanks and our boys whole. You're just a speck of dirt on a beach of diamond teeth, and the machine just keeps ripping and ripping. Every time you move, the stones rattle, telling them exactly where you are. It's like the beach itself is snitching to the gunners on the hill. Clack, clack, clack. The sound of the surf, the sound of the stones, the sound of the end. You see a tank commander, half his body out of the turret, screaming for help. But he's just a statue of fire in a graveyard of iron. The pebbles don't care about the millions of dollars. They don't care about the second front. They just jam the gears and wait for the tide. I can still feel them. If I close my eyes, that cold, hard pressure against my chest, and the way they grind together when you try to breathe. Like the earth is trying to swallow you before you're even dead. The itch of the wet wool against my neck, the way the lice started to move when the heat from the beach hit them. It's all still there. You clawed at the rock until your fingers were just raw meat. And still, you couldn't get deep enough. We were just laying there, waiting for a miracle that wasn't coming, hoping the machine on the cliff would run out of canvas to rip. But it never did. It just kept humming. A perfect mechanical slaughter, fueled by a pebble, and a plan that never should have left the desk. I remember looking at a single pebble right in front of my nose, smooth, gray, with a little streak of white through it, and thinking how lucky it was. It didn't have to fight, it just had to be hard, and that was enough to kill 1,000 men. The bridge of the HMS Calpe, well, it was supposed to be the brain of the whole damn thing, but that morning, it was just a cage of cold, steel, and blind panic. You stand there on the deck, and the vibration. It's a low, thrumming hum from the engines that starts in the soles of your boots and works its way up your spine until your head feels like it's in a vice. Major General Roberts. Ham, they called him. He's pacing the bridge like a trapped animal, binoculars gripped so tight you can see the white of his knuckles in the gray light. But he ain't seeing anything. Not really. The smoke over Dieppe, it's a physical thing. A greasy black wall made of burning Churchill tanks and the pulverized chert of the beach. It hangs there, unmoving, turning the world into a smudge of charcoal and ash. And the radio, Lord, that radio. The great machine of communication, the thing that was supposed to keep us all together. But it was dying right in front of us. The operator. A kid from Quebec, I think. He's got his headset on so tight it's leaving red marks on his ears. He's frantically twisting those Bakelite dials, trying to find a voice in the static. But all he gets is that hiss, that cold, mechanical snake sound that don't tell you a damn thing. It's the sound of 1,000 men screaming into a void and getting nothing back but the sound of the ocean. Roberts is looking for a sign, a flare, a bit of movement. He sees a shape in the mist, maybe a bit of smoke shifting. And his mind, well, it just snaps to the only conclusion he can live with. He thinks the boys are on the promenade. He thinks they've cracked the German nut. Funny how the mind works when the truth is too much to swallow. It just invents a victory out of the smoke. He turns to his aide. His face is a mask of gray stone. "The Fusiliers," he says, "send 'em in. Now." Those 4 words. They were a death sentence for a whole generation of boys from Montreal. He's talking about the Les Fusiliers Mont Royal. They've been waiting in those little white landing craft, bobbing in the swell, sick as dogs, tasting the diesel fumes and the salt spray for hours. They're cold. They're tired. They've been listening to the rumble of the guns and wondering when it's their turn. And now, the signal lamp is flashing. They think they're going in to finish the job, to be the heroes of the day. They don't know that the beach is already a graveyard, that the tide is already red with the blood of the men who went in at dawn. I remember looking over the rail of the Calpe, seeing those white boats heading into the furnace. They looked like tiny ghosts disappearing into a wall of black soot. And Roberts, he just stands there, one hand on a cold brass rail. He's blind. Not because his eyes don't work, but because the machine of war has failed him. The radio is quiet, and in that silence, he fills the gap with his own hubris, the mundane horror of it. It's the way the ship just keeps functioning. The stewards are still moving about. The tea is still hot. The brass is still polished to a mirror shine. But just a mile away, the water is turning a muddy, sickly pink. You look at the radio operator again, and he's just, well, he's stopped. He's just sitting there with his hands over his face. The radio smells of hot dust and ozone. The smell of a machine that's worked itself to death saying absolutely nothing. He don't need the signal anymore. He can feel the failure in the air. It's a mechanical tragedy. A breakdown of copper wire and vacuum tubes that's tallying up its cost in human souls. Pretty soon, you start seeing them, the boats, those white landing craft, drifting back out of the smoke. They're empty, hollow, looking like discarded eggshells on a gray sea. There ain't no men in 'em, just the salt spray and the smell of cordite. The silence on that bridge, it was heavier than any 88mm shell. A thick, suffocating silence where nobody wants to look at anybody else. Roberts is staring at a map. His finger touching a line on the paper that's gone completely cold. He sent his last reserves into a meat grinder because a radio stayed quiet. He pushed him into a slaughterhouse because he couldn't see through the gray. I remember the smell of the deck, that wet, metallic scent of seawater on iron, and the way the vibration of the screws felt like a low, throbbing pulse of guilt. We were just watching the mist, waiting for a signal that was never going to come. And all we got was the sight of those empty white boats coming back to tell us the truth. They were bobbing in the wake, white and clean and ghostly, while the boys who used to be in them were bleeding out on the pebbles of Dieppe. It's the silence that kills you, that long, blind, mechanical silence. You hear a single stray bullet, ping, hitting the ship's hull, and it sounds like a bell tolling for the dead. Roberts just kept staring into the smoke, hoping for a miracle. But the only thing the machine had left to give us was the list of the dead. It's funny how a man's coat can look so crisp in the wind when his whole world is falling apart. I remember the way his fingers twitched against the brass rail. Just a tiny, involuntary movement, like he was trying to tune a radio that wasn't there anymore. The sea, it just kept moving, rolling the empty boats over the waves on Ishin, washing away the names and the stories. We were the command. We were the ones who were supposed to see everything. But in that moment, we were the blindest men in the world. And the radio? It just kept hissing, a cold mechanical laugh in the corner of the bridge. It's the silence of the machine that sticks with you. The way it just stops caring while the boys are still out there, hoping for an order that'll never come. You look at the operator's eyes, and you see a different kind of fog, a fog of shame that no sun is ever going to burn away. We were blind, and the cost was everything. The mahogany table, well, it's too big. It's so damn big and polished until it looks like a lake of dark, cold water. Back in that London boardroom. The air is too still. It's too clean. It smells of beeswax and old leather and that sharp, medicinal scent of furniture polish. It's a far cry from the diesel fumes and the salt spray that's still burning the back of my throat. Churchill's sitting at the head of it, looking like he's aged 10 years since the sun came up over the channel. He's got the butcher's bill in front of him. A long, thin stack of paper that feels far too light to hold so much death. 4,000. 4,000 names that used to be boys from the prairies and the dockyards. And now, well, they're just ink on a page. Lord Mountbatten. He's standing by the window, looking like a man who's never had a speck of grit in his eye or the taste of cordite in his spit. The light is catching all that gold lace on his sleeve, making it shine while he talks about a massacre as if it were a bad hand at bridge. He calls it a necessary lesson, a trial run for the real thing. He says the machine, the combined operations machine, it needed to be tested against a real wall of fire. He says we had to see how the German defenses worked before we tried the big one. Churchill don't say much. He just listens to the scratch. No, it's more like a rasp of a fountain pen somewhere in the corner of the room. It's a dry, cold sound. It don't sound like a man dying on a pebble beach. It just sounds like bookkeeping. The mundane horror of it, well, it's how easy it is to justify a massacre when you're surrounding yourself with mahogany and fine tea. Mountbatten's talking about data and geographical hurdles. But I keep thinking about that boy in the surf with his guts in his hands. And I wonder if he felt like Data when the lead was ripping through him. Churchill finally looks up. His eyes are red, bloodshot from the strain and the lack of sleep. He looks at Mountbatten, and you can see that question bouncing around in his head again. Is he mad? Or maybe he's asking it about himself for letting it happen in the first place. Funny how small things stick with you, like the way a clock on the wall kept ticking, just a steady, mechanical, thump, 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 counting down the seconds that those boys don't have anymore. The planners, they're moving pins on a different map now, plotting the next move while the ink on the casualty list is still wet. It's a different kind of war in here, a war of fountain pens and top-secret stamps. They're talking about the value of the sacrifice as if it were a currency you could spend at the bank. Churchill's hand is shaken just a bit. A tiny tremor as he reaches for his cigar. He tries to light it, but the match keeps going out. His breath is heavy, ragged almost. He's staring at a name on the top of the list, a colonel, or maybe just a private. And he looks hollow, like someone's gone and scooped out his insides and replaced them with cold, gray stones. He knows those 4,000 boys are going to follow him into the dark for the rest of his days, haunting his dreams until the war ends, and probably after that too. And still, the Lord with the gold lace keeps talking. He says we've learned about the tanks, we've learned about the radio failure, we've learned about the shingle stones. He says it was worth it. I wonder if he'd say that if his boots were filled with salt water and blood instead of being polished to a mirror shine. The room is warm. The fire is crackling in the hearth. And yet, I can't stop shivering. It's the coldness of the logic. The machine don't have a heart, and the men running it, well, sometimes I think they've forgotten what one feels like. Churchill finally speaks. His voice is a low, gravelly rumble that sounds like stones grinding together. A carnage, he says. Just that one word. Carnage. And for a second, the room goes quiet. The scratching pen stops. The clock seems to hold its breath. But then, the machine just starts up again. Someone clears their throat, someone else shuffles a file, and the massacre becomes a report again. It's the silence that kills you. The way the system just absorbs the death and keeps turning like nothing happened. We paid the bill. We paid it in full with the best boys we had. And all we got was a lesson written in red ink on a mahogany table. Churchill just stares at the map, his cigar finally lit, But he ain't smoking it. He's just watching the smoke rise, looking for the ghosts of Dieppe in the gray haze. I remember the way the light looked on the floorboards, a long, pale strip of sun that felt like an insult to the men in the dark water. We're all just parts of the machine. And the planners, they're just the ones with the oil cans. They don't mind a bit of friction as long as the gears keep grinding toward the victory they've promised. I can still feel the weight of that room, the way the air felt like it was made of lead. We're moving on, planning for the next beach, but the pebbles are still there, and so are the ghosts. Churchill looks at the Lord, and for a split second, you see it, the truth. We didn't just lose a battle, we lost our souls on that beach. And the lesson? Well, the lesson is that the machine don't care about the price. It just cares about the result. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Another name. Another story ended. Another lie told. To keep the gears turning in the dark. It's funny how clean a disaster looks when it's typed on white paper. No blood, no smell of burning rubber, just the quiet, mechanical tally of 1,000 lives lost for the sake of a better map. The tide? Well, it's finally pulling back. Slow, relentless, like a giant taking a long, shaky breath after a meal. Out here on the shingle, no, on the slaughterhouse floor of Dieppe, the noise has just vanished, gone. No more brr-ah-pah from the cliffs, no more screaming engines, just the waves. They're doing that rhythmic thudding, washing against the stones. It smells, Lord, it smells like a wet dog dipped in iodine and old pennies. That briny rot of seaweed and cold. Dead salt, it sticks to your skin. It makes the wool of your tunic feel like it's made of lead and grit. You look down the line of the beach, and the machine, the great mechanical ambition of the empire, it's just a graveyard of rusted iron and broken glass. Those Churchill tanks, they're just sitting there, half drowned, like prehistoric beasts that crawled out of the deep, only to realize they couldn't breathe the air. The water, it's gray, oily, swirling with the rainbow colors of diesel fuel and something else. Something darker. Funny how the ocean don't distinguish between a hero and a mistake. It just washes them both the same. I see a shape, right there between two jagged rocks. It's a boot, no. It's just a piece of driftwood. Small things play tricks on your eyes when the sun starts to dip. But then, you see it. A helmet, a Canadian one of ours. It's half buried in the chert, the shingle. Those diamond-hard pebbles that eat the tanks. The tide is washing in and out of it, and filling it up with cold foam, then draining it back into the sea. It looks like a bowl or a bell, waiting for a ringer that ain't ever coming home. You hear that sound? That low, grinding, crunching sound as the waves move the stones? It sounds like a machine, a giant, mechanical grinder, gratting bone against rock, turning everything into dust. It's the same sound the teletype made back in London. Click, 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 tallying the cost. Churchill's question? Well, it's still hanging over the water. Is he mad? He was looking for a name to blame, a person to point a finger at. But the sea don't care about names. The sea just knows the weight of the bodies it's trying to hide. The mundane horror. It's the way the pebbles just keep rolling, rhythmic, peaceful. Like they didn't just spend the morning turning 1,000 boys into ghosts. The itch of the salt in my eyes. The way the cold has settled right into my marrow. It don't go away. You look at that helmet, and you realize the machine didn't fail. It worked perfectly. It took the men, it took the metal, and it turned them into a lesson. A lesson written in salt and chert. The silence. It's the loudest thing I ever heard. Just the waves, and the grinding of the stones, and the realization that the world is going to keep turning, and the teletype is going to keep clicking, and more glass spears are going to be built. The ocean don't have no answers. It just has the tide. And the tide? Well, it's just washing the red out of the pebbles, over and over, until the beach is gray again, until the ghosts are the only ones left who remember the crunch, just salt and stone, and the long, grinding silence.